like this, you know, or do they walk in kind of, you know, like this? I mean, you can totally see, you know, a body language difference in how that person is flowing, if they're a 10 or if they're a 1. And you find sometimes that some people in certain situations are 1 and then the other. So I found one person who was very 1 oriented when they were in their home with their family. Like, it actually sort of surprised me that they were like, oh yeah, mom, anything, yes ma'am, like I'm from the South, so it was like the yes ma'am thing, and they completely went into the 1, but they were very powerful in their business, and they were like this, and so they were actually doing both, but in 2 different contexts. So then if you've got somebody who has a 2 vibration, and so a 2 vibration again could be that they were born on the 2nd, they could be born on the 11th, they could be born on, is there anything else, the 20th. So that's an example of an 11. They could be born on the 29th, you know, which is an 11-2, okay. So this is a 2-11 pattern, and so if somebody has a, like, is definitely born on the 2, like 9-2 or April 2nd, or you know, something like that, the 2 vibration is going to be, it usually means in their last lifetime they had a brain like a steel trap and they were the bullshit detector. So, but again, think of Einstein, because this is the archetype for this number. So really well educated, really smart. So if you think of approximately 100 years from a person's birthday, so let's say they were born in 60, okay? So let's say this person 100 years ago was born approximately, you know, in another lifetime, so 1860. In 1860, was education an automatic thing? Right. So if you had a really good education 100 years ago and backwards, you had to come from an upper class family, an upper middle class family, or you had to have a job that required languages and cultures and travel and trade or something like that, merchant stuff where you had to deal with numbers and stuff. So somehow this person in their last lifetime was very smart, very well educated, had an opportunity, whether of their own making, because they were a merchant and a sailor, or because they were actually in school and they were very scholastic. But people who have 2s, they're really smart. They're like the bullshit detectors. They like to look at things from lots of different angles. So the soul of 2, this person can be very critical. They can be very judgmental. They can be very opinionated. They can be very right-wrong. They can think they're always right. And so sometimes this is a hard person to deal with, because this person literally thinks they're being helpful by criticizing sometimes. Now, there is a way for them to learn to not be critical, but to be discerning. To kind of relax and kind of say, excuse me, but I'm seeing an inconsistency here. You know, do you want this or do you want that? Can you see how those 2 are going to interfere? Like, they can actually have a communication skill that they can learn that makes it better. But sometimes you get a person that's like, no, that's not right. What's wrong with you? I told you 3 times that you shouldn't do that, right? You know, so you can get this like kind of critical energy with the 2. So I'm always counseling a person who has a soul of 2 to try and move it out of that critical negative mind into transcendental consciousness and awareness, because you can take it to the higher power, sort of. You can take it to a Leonardo da Vinci, because Leonardo da Vinci was really smart, he was really bright, but he took it into this very expanded kind of place. So I'm always trying to get the 2s to notice. Do you notice where you're being critical? Do you notice where you're being judgmental? Do you notice where you're creating restrictions and limitations? Is there another way you could do that? Is there a more effective way that you could do that? It's not that you're wrong. You're very smart. You're very bright. But sometimes cognitive knowing is not enough. Sometimes you need that intuitive flow. Many times in my life, I know one thing and I think I'm right, and then I follow a feeling thread even though I know that something is one way, and I find a whole other way, right? So, you know, the 2 is like A plus B means C, right? And sometimes that's not always true. I mean, what's really cool about people is I look at people all the time and go, wow, they're doing it that way? I would never do it that way. That's really interesting. That actually works for them, right? And it does work for them. So the big joke is there's not just one way to do something, and your way is not always the right way. So it's this kind of thing like that. So that would be the 2 now, and 2 into the 11. Now, if somebody had the 11 vibration soul, it means that they were being a rebel. So if I look at the 29 or, you know, the 11 right there, I would pull it more towards being a pure 11 rather than the 2. But again, you can see somebody, if they come in and they're like this, you know, and they're born the 29th, and they're born, you know they're critical and negative. I mean, this is not brain surgery, right? So, but that 11 is transcendental consciousness and awareness, which means this is a rebel. So you oftentimes find people that are in an 11 vibration soul, that they walk in and they're dressed kind of funky. You know, they're dressed kind of funky or colorful or hippie-ish or different. They're kind of eclectic. They have their own way of being. They're not fitting in a little box somewhere, right? And again, a 2 would be like, you know, the tie and the fitted shirt and the, you know what I mean, it's like the little suit and the jacket, you know what I mean, you can see that total difference in the energy. So I'm always trying to get the 2 to loosen up and be a little bit more 11-like. And sometimes you have to calm the 11 down and give them a little more structure, so you have the 2, so you have to go either way, sort of. So, but the 11 soul means that in their last lifetime they were being a rebel, so they could have been taking a big risk in some way that they had no guarantee whether they were going to do something or not. And so 11s are like, don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how I'm supposed to be. They're kind of like, you know, they're going to do it that way. They're going to kind of march to their own drummer. They're going to go their own way a little bit. And that's great. That's wonderful. We love the rebels. I mean, they're the people that rock the boat and rattle the cage and wake us up and make us think outside of the box and see a different way. But 11s sometimes get very frustrated because they feel like they're an eagle flying up in the air and other people are on the ground. And so they're the person that's like, oh my gosh, can you guys see that army coming over the next ridge? And they're like, no, we can't see it. And they're like, no, really, there's an army coming around the next ridge. And the 11s are the soothsayers, the people who see patterns coming before they come. And people don't always want to hear that. So it's a little problematic. So sometimes then that makes the 2 really critical, and it's like, you're not listening to me. You know, I told you. See, I told you that's what's going to happen. I told you so, kind of thing. So they can flip from that 11 down into the 2 when they don't feel heard or they don't feel listened to in some way. But the 11, I mean, I love the 11s because they're philosophical and you can talk to them and they're funky and weird and they're interesting and they're just a lot of fun on that level. Okay, so then if we go to a soul of 3, and a soul of 3 is called the soul of positive mind. Let's do 21, and we've got anything else? 30. Okay, so those would be examples. So 9, 3, 10, 12, November 21st, March 30th. Those would be a soul of 3 vibration. So a soul of 3 would be a soul of positive mind. And so this person in their last lifetime learned to be positive, upbeat, happy-go-lucky, good-natured, sarcastic, witty, and humorous. They're gregarious and fun-loving and outgoing and dynamic. They've learned to turn lemons into lemonade. They've learned to reframe the negative to the positive and roll with the punches and have a sense of humor. This person would rather laugh than cry. So they're always like, come on, you can do it. I know you can do it. They're like the cheerleader pom-pom person, right? So they're very fun and they're very positive and they're very upbeat. But, like I said again, if a person is really good at reframing the negative to the positive in a past life, guess where the universe will put them? Around negative people. So what you find is that you get these people that are very positive, but they're in these very negative situations and jobs, or in these very negative families, and they think, what is this? And I'm like, it's the 3. Because you're good at reframing the negative to the positive, and so the angel's going to put you around negative people that need to be uplifted. That's just sort of how it works. It's kind of weird, but that's how it works. So that's why it's called devil and divine, because they're trying to be divine, and then all of a sudden they're just like, that's it, boom, and then they'll be devilish for a minute. So what I change a children's nursery rhyme to match this one slightly, and it's that one that goes, there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead, and when she was good, she was very, very good, and when she was bad, this is the part that I'm going to change, she was better. So what you'll find is that you'll find these people that everybody at work thinks they're wonderful and amazing and positive and uplifting and incredible, but this person every once in a while just needs to cut loose. They need to go get drunk, be wild and crazy, go on a wild trip, do some crazy adventure, maybe do some drugs. They might cut loose every once in a while, okay, just because they've just got to be bad for a minute. They've just got to be bad because they're like good, bad. You know, they have to just cut loose every once in a while. And it's funny because they're always surprised when I can read them that way because they think nobody can read that. Because it's all a big secret, right? Wow. Because the 3 in a karma position is associated with Neptune. So most 3 vibrations, the 3rd month, is associated with Pisces and Aries, but most Pisces are born in the 3rd month, and it's ruled by Neptune, and Neptune is the planet of illusion. So did you ever notice that when people are too positive, you just don't quite believe it, right? you know that it can't quite be that perfect, right? So here in Salt Lake City, Utah, I find that this city is a 3. So everybody's like, they're all happy, and they're just like, everyth's beautiful at the ballet, and we're all perfect, and we're all doing the right thing, and everything like this, but then there's like the guy that's married, that has 10 children, that's having sex on the side with 3 other women, and do you know what I mean? Like you know, it's that devil comes out. So it's that Jim and Tammy Faye Baker energy, right? You know, it's a little false sometimes. So this person has to work on not being false. Okay, they have to work on being authentic. And because you can be very positive and be very authentic at the same time. And you can own that, yeah, you know, I'm a little devil every once in a while. And so sometimes you'll find that this 3 matures. So at first, they're the perfect kid, the perfect child, the perfect college student. And then they kind of go through their midlife crisis and something changes and they kind of get a little devilish and do some wild things. And then as they get into their 60s, then somebody will come up to them and say, oh, did you know that so-and-so is having an affair with blah, blah, blah? And then the 3 will say at 60, they'll say, oh, you know, I did that when I was their age. And people will be surprised, oh, you did what? You know? But oftentimes the 3 is more willing to admit as they get older that they did some devilish things. Okay, right. But younger, they don't want to think about it at all. They don't want to even do it at all. But as they get older, sometimes they will. So I find the younger generation is a little bit of the exception to this rule because the younger generation is a lot more open to just be a little bit wilder than my years of my generation were. Definitely. Yeah, so there's a kind of a modification as I'm looking at this. So you find the younger generation that they're more willing to be a little wild. So, okay, then if we go to a 4, so if we go to a 4, soul, if you go to a 4 soul, this could be a 4, this could be a 22, this could be a 13, and this could be a 31. Okay, so a person who has a soul of 4 says in their last lifetime they were working on neutral mind. Again, neutral mind is a very high-level game. So they were being a mediator, a counselor, a negotiator, a diplomat, a Buddha consciousness person, a harmonizer, a balancer, win-win cooperative person. So with the soul of 4, they wanted peace. And it means that in their last lifetime, they did attain a certain level of peacefulness. So they hit it. They hit that neutral mind somewhere. They got it. They might have had it only for 5 minutes, but they hit it, okay? So they did hit it. Now, the problem, of course, is that in order to test to see if you're truly neutral, you have to be put in chaos. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, this person has this desire, like, to create win-win, but they've upped the ante in this lifetime. So an easy example would be, it's really easy to be neutral if you're in a monastery in Tibet before the Red Army came through, but it's a lot harder to be neutral in America, Western culture, money, the drama of money, the seeking after the almighty dollar. It's a much harder thing to somehow stay neutral in the middle of all that. So they kind of have this utopian idea of some perfect thing that they're going for, but